In a bombshell report, we're now learning that President Trump was literally seconds away from becoming a target of a shadow unit inside Iran's military, so secretive even Washington isn't entirely sure who gave the order. Meanwhile, halfway across the region, oil is burning, missiles are falling, and an entire regime is fracturing from the inside out in ways its own generals never saw coming. Stick me to the very end of this video because you're going to understand exactly how bombs, broken oil pipelines, and total isolation are all colliding at once to crush Iranian leadership and bring this regime finally to its knees. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe. And also, you know what surprised me? We only recently started publishing on MSN, and we've exploded. I'm honestly blown away by how fast we're growing there. It means our videos are now going viral right where all the normies still get their news. So patriots like you can start putting the truth of faith, family, and freedom right straight into their feed. So if you want to keep changing the world by helping shape what they see this week, tap the link, watch today's video on MSN, and share it into your world as well. Last night, Iran shattered a fragile 3-day pause in the war by launching a surprise ballistic missile barrage straight at U.S. forces in the Middle East. The IRGC's Aerospace Force fired missiles at Mulafaq Salti Air Force Base and CENTCOM's own headquarters in Jordan. Now, unfortunately for the regime, every single projectile was intercepted and destroyed before it can do any damage. Jordan's air defenses knocked 5 missiles clean out of the sky in a dramatic overnight intercept caught on tape. And the U.S. and allied response was swift and it was fierce. American and Saudi fighter jets slammed Iran-backed militia sites across 7 Iraqi provinces, retaliating for over 30 IRGC-directed drone attacks in just 72 hours. And the strikes were devastating, killing at least 20 fighters and wounding 32 more. This is the biggest flare-up since Trump paused strikes just days ago to give diplomacy some space, and now that space has apparently vanished. Iran is simultaneously threatening Hormuz shipping and rejecting an Omani compromise, proving that the factions in charge of Tehran have no intention of standing down. Trump, for his part, appears to have finally had enough.
An attack on U.S. forces overnight in Jordan. President Trump tells Fox News about Iran, "We are going to beat the effing S out of them." He went on to say, "We'll be hitting them hard. They're going to get a beating." So clearly the United States is going to respond to what the president described as a surprise attack. He says U.S. forces had just minutes to shoot down these incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. The president says he has reviewed video of the shootdown, and it was U.S. forces conducting this operation to defend that area. He said it was real time. They were calling out coordinates and ensuring that none of this incoming Iranian fire got through.
And now, according to the latest report, Trump has all the more reason to completely wipe out the regime. We are now learning that Iran did indeed attempt to shoot Air Force One right out of the sky. This was while Trump was on the ground in Ankara, Turkey, for the most recent NATO summit, roughly 1,000 miles from Tehran. You may remember that Trump actually just out of nowhere had to change planes when leaving from Ankara. He swapped out the new Air Force One for the old one. It's now been confirmed that that was because U.S. intelligence caught wind of a credible plot by Iranian proxy forces to fire a missile at his aircraft. And the Secret Service did not hesitate for a second. What's so fascinating here, if you don't know, is that the old Air Force One isn't just a plane. It's literally a flying fortress. It's packed with laser tech to blind incoming missiles. It's got systems to misdirect surface-to-air threats. And it even has EMP-hardened communications gear. And I should point out that it's not just the plane. You may have seen how Air Force One is often accompanied by fighter jet escort, these F-15 fighter jets. They function as Secret Service in the air. So if there's an attack on Air Force One, they immediately serve as defensive counter-air missions to physically put their own aircraft between Air Force One and anything trying to close in on it. It's pretty impressive stuff. But the concern was that the F-15 defense would not be enough, and the new Air Force One apparently doesn't have the complete fortress capabilities the way the old one does. So President Trump flew back from Ankara under threat of an Iranian missile strike in the old Air Force One. Now, again, we're getting word that specifically that threat came from the IRGC's Quds force. That's the roughly 15,000 strong shadow unit used to arm and organize all of Iran's regional proxies like Hezbollah and the Houthis and Iraqi Shiite militias. Their special external operations arm has run assassination attempts abroad for years, usually through proxies, always keeping Iran's fingerprints off the trigger. And of course, it's not just Air Force One. The regime has been desperately striking back in any possible way it can just to disrupt the free flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. That's been Iran's single point of leverage for 47 years. Cause the global oil market to spike, and then cause a reciprocal cost of living crisis around the world, which then forces the international community to give Iran whatever it wants. Well, as President Trump has made absolutely clear, those days are over. Trump has initiated a threefold, multi-pronged strategy to bring this regime to a halt. Massive aerial bombardments, eliminating their ability to project power, an economic strangulation campaign through the U.S. enforced blockade, starving Iran of $500 million a day in lost oil revenue, and then completely isolating Iran internationally. That combination of military bombardment, economic strangulation, and international isolation is aimed at causing the regime to fracture and eventually implode. And there is clear evidence that we are already seeing precisely that happen. And ironically, it was last night's surprise attack that proves it. Have you ever wondered why your energy starts to change as you get older? A big part of it comes down to what's happening inside your cells. Your body's made up of more than 30 trillion of them, and every single one needs energy to repair itself, communicate properly, and keep your body working the way it should. Inside those cells are tiny structures called mitochondria. You can think of them as the engines that power your body. They take the food you eat, the oxygen you breathe, and they turn it into the energy you need to think, move, recover, and stay healthy. But as we age, those engines begin to slow down. That can affect everything from your energy and your focus to your physical performance and how quickly your body recovers. That's where NMN comes in. NMN is a naturally occurring compound that helps replenish NAD+, something your cells rely on to produce energy, repair everyday damage, and support healthy aging. As NAD+ levels decline, your cells have a harder time doing their jobs efficiently. Research shows that NMN may help support healthier NAD+ levels, energy metabolism, physical activity, insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial function, and age-related gene expression. That's why Brightcore created NMN3. Rather than taking NAD+ itself, supplementing with NMN gives your body the raw material it needs to naturally produce more NAD+, making it a more effective way to replenish declining levels. With consistent daily use, NMN3 helps support better energy, more restful sleep, stronger physical performance, healthy immune function, and an improved overall sense of well-being. NMN3 is all natural, non-GMO, proudly made right here in the USA. So if you're ready to support your cellular energy and start feeling more like yourself again, now's the time to try NM3. Today you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below. Just use code TURLEY for 25% off your entire order, or for an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order plus free shipping. Give them a call right now at 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233. According to the latest Institute for the Study of War Critical Threats special report, there are now 3 competing groups fighting to control Iran's negotiations policy. Now remember, Mojtaba Khamenei took over supreme leader supposedly, right after his father was killed back in the spring. He's not been seen in public since. That's not a minor detail. That's a supreme leader who can't even prove he's actually alive, let alone running the country, right? Kind of like our own Mitch McConnell. That's why I like calling him Moshtaba Mitch, right? But the key here is that in that vacuum, there is a very real power struggle, and it appears to have consolidated around IRGC Commander Ahmed Vahidi and Supreme National Security Council Secretary Zolkadar. Now, this is the hardline faction that wants the war to keep going because the IRGC's entire economic empire and political survival depends on the perpetuation of an ideological narrative of permanent struggle against America. So this is the regime's legitimation myth. They've been ordained by God to take down the great Satan, namely the United States. And if U.S. forces indeed force the regime to capitulate, that delegitimizes the narrative, right? Their legitimizing narrative collapses. So they're all in. They've gone full kamikaze mode here. Then you've got Parliament Speaker Galibiev. He's running what analysts are calling the pragmatic hawk lane. The pragmatic hawk lane. He's the one that reportedly the Trump team actually talks to in these backroom channels, but he can't commit Iran to anything without Vahidi's sign-off. Then there's President Pezeshkian and the reformists who want a ceasefire. They want to see the regime transform more into their parliamentary fold. But unfortunately, they have basically no institutional power left to make any of that happen. So you got a supreme leader who's a ghost. You got a military commander who's actually running things. You got a parliament speaker stuck negotiating with no authority. And you got a president everyone's ignoring. That's not a government, okay? That's a room full of people arguing over the wheel of a car that's already on fire. At the same time, as if it couldn't get worse, you've got the IRGC itself fragmented around what's called their mosaic defense. So in the event that their leadership gets taken out like it did back on February 28th, the first day of the war, the Iranian military is ordered to break up into dozens of autonomous regiments who have the sovereignty to act out in any way they want. They don't need clearance or orders from the top, since there is no top. And so that's why this latest surprise attack ironically reveals just how fractured Iran is. This haphazard lashing out is indicative of the fact that there is no single regime, but multiple competing regimes. And again, that fracturing did not happen by accident. This is Trump's strategy. And it's worked exactly the way it was designed to work. Bombardment plus economic strangulation plus regional isolation equals internal fracture. So look at each piece here. The bombardment, 13 plus nights of strikes, degrading command and control every single night. The economic strangulation, their refineries are offline, their rial, their currency is in a free fall, oil revenue bleeding out faster than Tehran can patch it. And the regional isolation. Gulf states have turned on Iran. Saudi Arabia is now actively striking Iranian and Houthi positions in retaliation. And Iran has managed to alienate practically every neighbor it has. So you squeeze a regime in all three of those fronts at once, and it doesn't just weaken militarily. Its own internal factions start eating each other alive, fighting over what's left of the wreckage. That's exactly what we're watching happen right now with Vahidi's hardliners boxing out Ghalibaf's pragmatists, while a silent supreme leader sits helplessly in the middle, represented as a cardboard. So here's the bottom line. Iran tried to take out Air Force One. And obviously, instead of flinching, Trump doubled down with strikes that are still degrading the regime's capability night after night. Every barrel of oil they can't ship, every dollar they can't collect, every ally that turns its back, that's another crack in a foundation that's already splitting three ways at the top. A regime that can't decide who's in charge, can't fight a war it's already losing on every front. And that is how regimes actually fall, not with one knockout blow, but with 1,000 simultaneous cracks until there's nothing left standing.